Hubbard with this expanded morning newscast. Good morning and thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Ben Hubbard. The WHOW Morning Show is brought to you by Baum Chevy Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, as well as Connexus, offering fiber internet in Clinton. Click their icon on DeWittDailyNews.com to find out more. Clinton staff filled the junior high school library Tuesday night for the Board of Education's monthly meeting. Frustrations from district staff have boiled over in recent weeks regarding compensation, support, and questions of district leadership. Speaking for Clinton Education Association President Nathan Wheeler, Jim Rhodes presented a statement for the district's band director, who is currently overseas with students visiting Germany. The letter from Wheeler highlights statements shared by Board President Dan Matthews concerning the Clinton Education Association's leadership.
President Matthews, I'm glad you have called into question how the union and its leadership support the improvement of learning in our schools and has given me the opportunity to share publicly what I believe the good citizens of our community realize we provide in Clinton for our students. In regards to another matter you may want to address tonight, I am confident Superintendent Goebel will be willing to clarify some misconceptions you might have. For example, I am under the impression that you believe it was the work of Superintendent Goebel alone to hire the administrators at Lincoln Douglas, CES, and a new director of curriculum and learning. Superintendent Goebel, I'm confident, will confirm that it was one team of people who worked together with one mission to read resumes and interview candidates for each of these positions. Regarding the financial status of the school, I shall remind you, President Matthews, that it took one team of association members, board members, and Superintendent Goebel to approve the last two contracts. I am sure you remember the compromises that were made on both ends to achieve that mission. In closing, I want to address a topic you may not choose to share tonight.
Additionally, the statement from Wheeler noted 80% of the district's professional staff recently completed a school climate and leadership survey. While the specific results have been compiled and shared with the administration and board members, the union chose to let the administration decide how to use those results rather than releasing them to the public immediately.
It is publicly known that a survey about the school climate and leadership of Clinton schools was recently completed by 80% of the professional staff in the district. The results were shared with all administrators and school board members, and the association left it up to the administrators as to how the results would be used. I said at the time, and will say again, that it's not my intention to share information publicly, and I have not shared it with all members of the association. However, the public would like to know how the professional educators feel about the leadership of this school district. The survey results were sent to the school email addresses of all school board members, and this information is available to the public by submitting a Freedom of Information Act or a FOIA request under the state and federal law. Thank you again, President Matthews, for giving our teachers the opportunity to share about our one team and our one mission.
Board members went back and forth later in the meeting over a compensation increase for District Athletic Director Matt Keppel. The item was removed from the agenda, but the board sparred over going to executive session to discuss the matter.
Need a motion and a second to approve the remaining administrator annual compensation for 2026-2027 school year.
I'm going to have to.
It refers to the person which is Mr. Keppel, who in May you pulled it off the agenda. It's back on the agenda tonight.
Right, but do we have
the school superintendent's salary is already set. His contract calls for a 3% increase, and he gets a 3% increase. I wasn't
asking about the superintendent. I was just asking where the information is in the packet for this. I just need to make sure we know what we're voting on.
It's a 5% increase that was communicated by me to all of you. Up for Matt as a group in our last meeting, we moved to do that. We instructed it to be on the next agenda.
Because unfortunately,
you don't have to vote on it.
It's not about not voting on it. I'm just making sure that we are doing things the correct way as far as the agenda, since nothing was in the packet regarding the monies.
Okay,
That
I'm
are
going to pull
involved.
item C off the agenda. If you don't feel that, I don't want anybody to vote on something they're not comfortable with. So item C is
Can we
pulled.
call for a closed session at the end of the meeting tonight?
No. You can call for a special meeting at a later time.
She can call for a closed session.
Go ahead.
I would like to ask for a closed session at the end of the meeting tonight.
It's the last item we have on the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion for a closed session.
Roll call. I guess we had a motion and a second.
Does that have to be posted on the agenda at a time?
I think it has to be.
I don't want to be.
I think it has to be.
I don't want to violate any rules.
You can have a closed session, but you cannot come back and vote on anything. You
Right, so we
cannot,
cannot come back to vote on item C that was already on there.
you cannot come back to vote on an item that's not already on the agenda.
Correct.
So
As long as it's on the agenda.
you can have a
think
closed
you can.
session, but you can't, if it's not on the agenda, you can't vote. But if it's on the agenda, you can. But I would need a motion carried. So do you want me to do a roll call or just? want
Yeah,
to-
roll call. Yeah, Adam.
Matthews?
No.
Baker?
Yes.
Ennis?
Yeah.
Oswald?
Yes.
Heinlein?
Yes.
Ruda?
Yes.
Because the administrative compensation item on the agenda was removed, there was no vote out of the executive session. In fact, the board adjourned the meeting after the executive session. Coming up shortly on this expanded newscast, Willow Tree Missions highlights restoration for victims leaving domestic violence relationships. A couple of proposals from the state of Illinois have local superintendents on high alert despite the recent conclusion of the latest session of the Illinois General Assembly. Maroa-Forsyth School Superintendent Adam Ibbotson explains that while he is disappointed by budget cuts, particularly mandated categoricals like transportation, he isn't surprised. He is also interested in the cell phone ban that was passed easily through the House and Senate.
So I think the funding mechanisms and those things, those kind of played out how I anticipated and how most people prognosticated they would. Evidence-based funding being committed to those mandated categoricals, essentially the things that we have to do by law but need to get reimbursed for. We saw that not fully funded with some of that proration of that we've talked a lot about. That was pretty expected. Governor Pritzker had made it a priority to think about a cell phone ban. He had talked about that as a part of his State of the State address, had sponsors from that bill, and that bill passed both legislators by a wide margin. That usually doesn't happen in Springfield. So those two things were signed. It hasn't been signed yet, but passed both chambers by a wide margin. I don't think it was unanimous, but maybe it was pretty darn close to it. So I think that cell phone ban, electronic device ban, I think that legislator, people are starting to put out some information about it and what that law really says, because the details really matter in this.
Maroa-Forsyth already practices its own restrictions on phones that are age group appropriate. Ibbotson trusts instructors to employ their own phone rules per classroom, which many already do in the form of phone caddies.
So think about technology in school districts. So currently at Maroa-Forsyth, cell phones are not out. They're put away at our grade school. They're in a kid's backpack. They're in a cubby. They're not to be accessed. And that's from K through 5 if you've got a smart device. So when you get to middle school and high school, those devices are essentially out for kids during passing periods. They're out during lunch periods. But if they're in a classroom, they're not supposed to be out unless the teacher gives permission for it. Many of our teachers have cell phone caddies. Essentially, it's a parking place for your phone to go during instructional time. Some teachers have that, some do not. As I have read part of the bill and I have looked at some of the legislation, I'm anticipating that Governor Pritzker will sign it. It will come into law. I think it's going to be an interesting piece about what we're actually doing with cell phones. Some districts around us have banned them already to where they're not out there except for certain times, like at lunch or before or after school. Other districts have an approach kind of like ours. And I think this is the state side of it, trying to get to the spot to where, okay, We don't want these out during instructional time because they become distractive. They become an issue for behavior potentially. Oftentimes they're sources of cyberbullying. Oftentimes they're places to where kids kind of get in trouble. It's a big responsibility. It's like a supercomputer at your hands that you can use. And I think that's been a challenge.
Ibbotson understands that the ban is to be implemented in the 2027-28 school year, and it seems to ban phones from the start of the day to the dismissal bell. He and other superintendents around the state look forward to guidance on this issue from the Illinois State Board of Education.
So now with the ban, it looks to be, as I've read through the legislation, a bell-to-bell ban, meaning once you start the day, you're not supposed to have it out. You're supposed to have it put away. That'll be interesting for us to look at our policy. We don't have to implement for 26-27. It will be 27-28 is the implementation of what it looks like. I'm really curious to know as we go through the details and we await some guidance from the State Board of Ed. Dr. Sanders, State Superintendent of School, has asked for, he's put out in a weekly note that they're going to provide some guidance for districts as we navigate through this. This will have to be updates to board policy. They'll have to work through the board level. And then really from an administrative procedure side, what is this really going to look like for us? Personally, I feel like our kids are addicted to screens. I know even as an adult, if I'm sitting, I was at a dance recital last night in Decatur. If there was downtime, the first thing people go to, they grab their phone. And I think we've missed some of that human interaction, that eye-to-eye, face-to-face contact. And I think people are recognized like, whoa, maybe this is what we do in society. The pendulum has gone so far this way, and now we're seeing it come back. I want to be cautious. I want to go slow, but I also see the merit in it and how we can navigate that with our teachers, our administrators, our parents, and our kids. Because there are concerns about having on your person for school safety purposes. What if something happens and I want to get a hold of my kid? I think that balancing act, I think it's going to come our way. And I think it's something that is a broader conversation with how are we using technology in schools in general.
Ibbotson feels that the balancing act between students having phones for safety purposes and the harmful impact phones can have on them is very delicate. He is encouraging parents to make sure they have access to their kids' phones and to monitor their online activity.
As a parent, I've got a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old. When they were in school and high school, they had a cell phone on them. It wasn't out on them all the time in class or walking around with it during a passing period, but they had them. I understand that from a parent concern. I understand safety pieces. But I also, looking at kids and how brain development works, and putting that screen in front of you, it's like this dopamine thing that I'm going to check all the time about what's going on. And then parents have gotten used to this 24/7 access to their kid. So the days of calling the office saying, hey, I'm sick, I need to go home, we still ask kids to check in. We still do those procedures and parents come pick up. But it's a big change in society over the last 5 to 10 years. And what does that look like? So I think this will be the start of it. And I think it will lead to a bigger conversation about how are we utilizing it? Is the technology really an instructional tool, or are we using it just to babysit or provide access? For parents, I think I would encourage you as a parent, as you hand a cell phone, a device that's connected to the internet. We did some internet safety stuff last fall with Ben Tracy talking about all the things that are out there online. Make sure that you have access to your kid's phone. Make sure you have an access to password. Make sure you know who their friends are, how social media works, and just be actively involved. It's like anything else, monitoring that and having that relationship to know. I would just encourage you on that. And then we'll kind of navigate this together as a school community and as the communities of Maroa-Forsyth.
Ibbotson plans to navigate these issues as a community over the next year as he and other administrators learn more about applying this ban. Learn more about Maroa-Forsyth schools at mfschools.net or by finding them on Facebook. You're listening to the WHOW Morning Show. Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsors.
Looking for a new Silverado? This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. We have a good selection of new Silverado inventory. We have Silverados in 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s with several trim levels, custom, LT, RST, LTZ, and yes, even high countries. All our inventory is priced for our summer savings season. Baum Chevrolet Buick. Together, let's drive. BaumChevroletBuick.com right from the start.
It's the quiet moments you count on. A call that connects instantly, a show that never buffers, a home that just works. That's the difference with Connexus Fiber Internet. We built a buried fiber network designed for consistency, earning us the title of top-rated fiber internet provider in Illinois. With plans starting as low as $25 a month and 3-year price lock options, it's reliability you can feel without the unpredictability. Because with Connexus, connection means everything. Experience better at Connexus.com. Nothing connects us like Connexus.
News time is 24 minutes after the top of the hour. You're listening to the WHOW Morning Show. For survivors of domestic violence, breaking free from an abuser is only the initial step in a complex journey toward reclaiming independence. And a Piatt County nonprofit is shedding light on the multi-layered support system required to help victims successfully navigate life after leaving an abusive relationship. Andrea Coker, Director of Services at Willow Tree Missions in Piatt County, explains that every survivor situation is entirely unique. While some require emotional support or legal tools like an order of protection, many face a total loss of their material lives and rely on the agency's specialized services.
Every single situation is different. There are some people who come for services who have no financial needs whatsoever. They are financially stable individuals. However, they need emotional support. They just need someone to listen. So sometimes that's all we do. Sometimes there are people who come for an order of protection, get their order of protection, and that's enough. That's all they need. That's all they want. That's the only service that they need. There are other people who need help with complete rebuilds. They may need items. So whenever people are receiving services from us, while it's incredibly difficult to leave your things have a lot of sentimental value. They have a lot of memories. People are connected to their things. Also, things are what abusive people use to try and get their victims back. So we will provide new things from our resale shops or new items, depending on what it is. We'll do whatever it takes to help someone rebuild so that the things that they're leaving behind aren't the reason that they're having to continue to go back. So a major service that we offer people experiencing domestic violence is what we call rebuilds, or we give them the actual items to rebuild their lives so that they can start completely fresh without having that held over them.
When an abuser strips away a victim's external support systems, their personal items often become all they have left, representing either hard-won personal achievements or cherished family heirlooms. Coker says survivors will often endure continued volatility just to keep those items out of an abuser's total control.
Yep, 100%. And a lot of times people who, or almost always, people who are experiencing domestic violence are so isolated intentionally by their abuser that then the things that they have are oftentimes all that they have. They've become so much more for that person because they've either been able to provide them for themselves, which is a huge accomplishment for people who have everything else stripped away from them. Oftentimes it's items that have been passed down through families that abusers then connect more value to, knowing the victims will do whatever it takes to preserve those memories that are outside the DV relationship. And not to mention, people don't want to have their entire life stripped away from them. So if that's all they have, they're willing to do kind of anything to preserve that and not let their abuser have the control of those items because they've had control of everything.
Mm-hmm. While legal interventions like orders of protection are vital, Coker emphasizes they are ultimately just a tool. The reality of domestic violence is that an abuser seeking to maintain dominance can be highly unpredictable and willing to go to extreme lengths.
People who are experiencing domestic violence relationships are well aware that orders of protection are incredibly helpful. However, like I said, they're just a tool, because the reality is if someone has control over you and they want to maintain that control, they're unpredictable. They are willing to do just about anything to maintain that control. And so people who have fled or are fleeing DV relationships have to constantly be safety planning and preparing for what's next in their relationship so that they can move forward, but while also keeping themselves and their family safe.
To accommodate these unpredictable dynamics, COCA reminds Willow Tree Missions tailor safety plans to the specific timeline and comfort level of the individual. Domestic violence survivors seeking confidential safety planning, emergency housing resources, or material rebuild assistance can contact Willow Tree Missions 24-hour crisis line at 217-762-2350. You can also stop in to the Willow Tree Missions resale shop at 351 West Monroe Street in Monticello, or find the agency on Facebook. Get news anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. New York City's Democrat Socialist mayor was not on the ballot in yesterday's primaries, but 3 congressional candidates endorsed by Zohran Mamdani were, and all 3 of them won. This is going to happen, the words of the head of the UN's nuclear agency, saying that his inspectors will be visiting what's left of Iran's nuclear enrichment sites, and Tehran begs to differ on that point. Following the lead of the House, the Senate has approved a war powers resolution demanding that President Trump get congressional approval before any additional military action against Iran. The president's dismissing the non-binding resolution as meaningless and poorly timed. Federal judge in San Francisco is barring the feds from making any immigration arrests at U.S. courthouses. On Wall Street, the Dow futures down 39 points. NASDAQ futures 88 points higher. More details, srnnews.com.
Are you carrying more than $10,000 in credit card debt? Do you feel like you're running on a financial treadmill, making payment after payment, month after month, yet never getting ahead? If you're tired of watching your hard-earned money disappear into interest charges, there may be options available to help you take back control of your finances. At Total Financial Freedom, they'll show you what qualified consumers may be able to save through programs designed to help them resolve debt faster than making minimum payments alone. The consultation is free, confidential, and comes with absolutely no obligation. Why spend years, sometimes decades, paying thousands in interest when there may be a better path forward? Total Financial Freedom is a Christian-owned company that has helped thousands of Americans pursue financial freedom for nearly 20 years and is proudly A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now and ask how you can receive a complimentary copy of The Debt Dietitian. Stop running in place. Start moving toward financial freedom at 866-744-7344. 866-744-7344.
From the Hart Media Group Sports Desk, IL Sports Wire, and DeWittDailyNews.com, I'm Ben Hubbard with this local sports report. Miguel Vargas hit a go-ahead home run in the 6th inning. Sean Burke struck out 6 in 6 1/3 innings, and the Chicago White Sox claimed sole possession of first place in the AL Central on Tuesday night with a 2-1 win over the Cleveland Guardians. Burke is 5-4 and allowed 1 run on 6 hits and 1 walk to outduel Guardian starter Parker Messick. Sean Newcomb threw 2 2/3 scoreless innings in relief for his 2nd save. The White Sox are 22-4 in their last 26 home games, 11-1 against AL Central at home, and have won 9 straight home series after beating the Guardians 6-5 on Monday. Their 16 one-run wins are the most in the majors. Messick is 7-4 and struck out a career-high 10 in 7 2/3 innings, walking 1 and allowing 2 runs on only 3 hits. Colson Montgomery singled home Randall Grichuk in the 4th after Grichuk doubled at the first hit off Messick. Guardians rookie Khalil Watson hit his first career home run off Burke in the 5th, 373 feet to right field to make it 1-1, a week after making his MLB debut. The Guardians loaded the bases with 2 outs in the inning, but Burke induced Brian Riccio to pop out. Vargas put the White Sox in the lead for good to lead off the sixth, hitting Messick's slider 376 feet into the bullpen in left field. It was his career best 17th home run of the season. Guardians righty Tanner Bibby is 2-8 with a 4.03 ERA and closes out the 3-game series Wednesday against Sox right-hander Eric Fedde, who is 2-6 with a 4.46 ERA. Nolan Arenado and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. had run-scoring hits, and Arizona's eventual winning run scored on a passed ball, all in the 9th inning, as the Arizona Diamondbacks beat the St. Louis Cardinals 4-3 on Tuesday night. All the runs in the game were scored in the 9th inning. The Diamondbacks managed just 3 hits in the first 8 innings. In the 9th, Gabriel Moreno singled and Pavin Smith walked before Arenado hit an RBI double to left center field. Gurriel followed with a 2-run single to center for a 3-0 lead before Jorge Barosa scored on a passed ball by Cardinals catcher Jimmy Crooks. Arizona starter pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez allowed just 3 hits through 6 2/3 innings. He struck out 5 and walked 3. Kevin Ginkel is 3-2 and pitched the 8th, striking out 1 and earned the win. Braden Garcia earned his first save of the season. The Cardinals mounted a comeback in the bottom half of the 9th. Lars Nootbaar doubled to start the inning. Jose Fermin singled and Alec Burleson hit an RBI double down the first base line. Blaze Jordan hit a sac fly that scored Fermin, and Crooks hit an RBI single to right field to cut the deficit to 1 run, but J.J. Weatherholt struck out swinging to end the game. Weatherholt moved to shortstop for the game after Mason Wynn was a late scratch due to left thumb soreness. Wynn is listed as day-to-day. Matt Swanson is 2-2 and gave up 4 runs, working a third of an inning in the 9th. He pitched 31 pitches, walked 1, and had a strikeout. Starting pitcher Kyle Leahy pitched 6 1/3 innings, giving up 3 hits with 3 strikeouts and 2 walks. Lefty Matthew Liberatore, who is 3-4 with a 5.23 ERA, will start for the Cardinals against lefty Mitch Bratt, who will make his MLB debut with the Diamondbacks on Wednesday for the 3rd game of the series. Pete Crow Armstrong hit a 3-run homer. Dansby Swanson also went deep and drove in 4, and the Chicago Cubs beat the New York Mets 9-6 on Tuesday night, despite an injury to starting pitcher Edward Cabrera. The right-hander hurt his left leg stretching to catch a throw at first base for the final out of the 5th inning. In obvious pain, he was carted off the field with a left hamstring adductor strain. New York slugger Juan Soto exited in the 5th with tightness on the left side of his back. Francisco Alvarez homered and knocked in 3 runs for the last-place Mets, who fell to 0-4 against the Cubs this season. Bo Bichetti added a 2-run shot in a 3-run 9th inning. Coming off consecutive rainouts, Chicago scored 5 times in the 2nd against Kodai Senga, who is 0-6. Ineffective again in his 2nd start since returning from the injured list. The right-hander issued a leadoff walk and hit a batter with a pitch before walking Carson Kelly with the bases loaded to force in the first run. Swanson had a sacrifice fly, and Crow Armstrong launched his 17th homer to right center, extending his career best on-base streak to 24 games dating to May 26th. The star center fielder is hitting .410 with 11 homers, 20 RBIs, and a 1.324 OPS during that stretch. Riding an 11-game hitting streak, Crow Armstrong has 5 homers in his last 6 games and 6 in his past 8. He was drafted 19th overall by the Mets in 2020 before they traded him to Chicago in July of 2021. Swanson, batting the 9th, added a 2-run shot off Senga in the 4th, and an RBI double in a 2-run eighth. Kelly, who scored 3 times, also had a run-scoring double in that inning as the Cubs got 4 straight hits off reliever Tobias Myers, the last 3 of them doubles. Cabrera is 5-4 and gave up 2 runs, 3 hits, and 4 walks over 5 innings in the opener of a 4-game series. Cubs manager Craig Counsell was ejected for arguing a replay reversal in the 7th. The start was delayed 11 minutes by rain. A day-night doubleheader between the teams Wednesday, with the first game scheduled to make up Monday night's rainout. Javier Assad is 5-1 with a 3.89 ERA and starts the opener for Chicago against Nolan McLean, who is 4-4 with a 3.67 ERA. Shoto Imanaga is 4-6 with a 4.26 ERA and faces New York lefty Sean Manaea, who is 1-2 with a 4.64 ERA in the nightcap. In scores from around the MLB yesterday, the Houston Astros beat the Toronto Blue Jays 9-7 in 11 innings. The Kansas City Royals took down the Tampa Bay Rays 12-5. The New York Yankees beat the Detroit Tigers 4-3, while the Seattle Mariners beat the Pittsburgh Pirates 3-2. The Miami Marlins beat the Texas Rangers 6-4. While the Philadelphia Phillies took down the Washington Nationals 14-9. The Milwaukee Brewers shut out the Cincinnati Reds 2-0, while the Los Angeles Dodgers routed the Minnesota Twins 12-3. The Boston Red Sox beat the Colorado Rockies 5-2, while the Los Angeles Angels beat the Baltimore Orioles 5-1. The San Diego Padres took down the Atlanta Braves 7-6 in 10 innings, while the San Francisco Giants beat the Athletics 3-1. The Chicago Bulls had 2 top 15 picks Tuesday to highlight the first night of the draft in the Central Division. That represented a major change from last year, when the only Central team with the first-round pick was Chicago, which took Noah Asenge at 12 overall. Chicago selected North Carolina forward Caleb Wilson with the 4th overall pick and took Texas forward Dalen Swain at number 15. Wilson becomes the 3rd North Carolina player the Bulls have drafted in the first round. The Bulls selected Michael Jordan 3rd overall in 1984 and Kobe White 17th in 2019. Wilson's lone college season ended prematurely when he broke his right thumb in a non-contact drill while trying to come back from a fracture in his left hand. He still earned second-team Associated Press All-America honors while averaging 19.8 points and 9.4 rebounds. Wilson upgrades Chicago's overall athleticism. When Bryson Graham was introduced as the team's executive vice president of basketball operations in May, he mentioned the acronym SLAP, size, length, athleticism, and physicality, and the 6'9" Wilson fits right in. The 6'7" Swain averages 17.3 points and 7.5 rebounds and 3.6 assists as of last season with Texas. The Buffalo Sabres acquired the number 4 overall pick in the NHL draft in a trade that sent defenseman Bowen Byram to the Chicago Blackhawks on Tuesday night. As part of the deal, Buffalo also acquired third-year defenseman Louis Crevier, who had a career-best 25 points in his first full NHL season, and a second-round draft pick, 46th overall. Chicago also acquired hard-hitting forward Jordan Greenway. Byram is the key player in the trade. The 25-year-old had a career-high 42 points and matched a career-high with 11 goals in 82 games in spending much of the season playing alongside captain Rasmus Dahlin as Buffalo's top defensive pairing. He was part of a deep and talented blue line that contributed to the Sabres winning their first Atlantic Division title and snapping an NHL record 14-season playoff drought. Buffalo hosts the two-day draft that opens with round 1 on Friday night. Byram adds offense to a team that finished 8th in the Central Division standings for a 4th straight season and hasn't made the playoffs in 6 years. The Blackhawks have struggled to improve despite picking 7th or better in each of the past 4 drafts, a stretch that included them selecting Connor Bedard first overall in 2023. Chicago has a group of promising young defensemen, including Artyom Leshinov, the number 2 pick in the 2024 draft, and Kevin Korchinski, the number 7 pick in the 2022 draft. But the Blackhawks needed another veteran leader on the blue line.